Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to our second all-time administration town hall. Nice for you to all be here. Thanks for joining me today. And for those online, thanks for being online as well. Happy to have you all here. Here is what we are going to talk about today. We'll start with a little bit of the feedback you gave us on the original town hall and how that's shaped our agenda for today. And then Mike Bushy is going to talk to us a little bit about state of the research industry and what's going on with federal funding and some other topics. We'll talk about progress on our 2025 priority goals. Important today, you're going to hear some department highlights and some project updates, and you'll hear directly from the folks that have been doing the work. So that'll be fun to hear and good recognition for some of the teams that have been working today. We'll talk a little bit about 2026 and how we're going to look ahead and where we're at as we enter the budgeting process, and there'll be some time for Q&A. And then most importantly, there'll be time for snacks and refreshments and camaraderie in the atrium at the end of this. So food at the end. So welcome and thanks for being here. Okay, feedback. So after our inaugural in January, we asked some questions to see what would be helpful to you and what would be interesting to you for us to share. First of all was, how often do we do these? And we kind of split. Some of you said, I only need to hear from you once, and that's enough. That's probably more than enough. And the other one said, well, it'd be great to do it 2 or more times a year. So we're going to land on 2 times a year. That's where we're going to do this. So we'll have these in January as we kind of kick off the year, and then we'll do a mid-year review in the future, and as long as we have interesting stuff to talk about, we'll stick with that cadence in the future. So 2 times a year. What else were you interested in hearing? Well, kudos to team members and different parts of the teams that are doing work across the Institute. So we'll talk about that today. And specifically, you're going to get to hear from team members that have worked on a few priority projects. You'll hear directly from them. You won't hear from me on those. So you'll get to see the work they're doing and the team members that are involved, so we'll celebrate that. We'll talk about kind of the plans for growth of the organization and what that trajectory looks like. We'll share goal progress and visibility with you for priority goals that we share or that we covered in January. We'll talk on deep dive on some projects that different folks have been working on. And then, as I said, we'll talk about executive orders and impacts and those things, and Mike will cover some of that. And then ultimately, this all relates to how we're supporting the science in the Institute and the work that we do. So that'll be a theme throughout as we talk today. And you'll see all the work the teams are doing to help us support our mission. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, who's going to talk a little bit about state of the industry and kind of all the changes that's been going on this year. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks.
All right, so definitely I think there's a lot of things that describe this year. Challenging, requiring resilient workforce, flexible, right? A lot of things that have changed throughout the year. We thought we'd just highlight a few on here. We've been in this ever-changing rapidly growing environment over the last 5+ years. Growth is moderating as we go into the future. A lot of that can be federal funding, things like that are changing. The pace of technology is increasing rapidly through the use of AI in everything that we do. Public trust in science has never recovered right after COVID, so that's just something you see on the news constantly. That's something that we always battle, right, in our area of work. A new scientific moonshot is likely to launch in 2026. It's going to follow a different path than some of the other ones, leveraging more of a partnership model. So rather than just our traditional Paul G. Allen funded institutes, our workforce, so we've got a changing workforce. So demographics, the needs really focused on how do we improve employee experience. The one in the upper right is a really challenging one, as we saw throughout the beginning of the year. Just as these new executive orders started coming out, I think a lot of us didn't even know what executive orders were at the time, right? They're these presidential actions that can be put in place, and a lot of them were impacting federal funding, impacted the grant process, impacted the visas, so with a lot of people. And then we had this lovely tariff It's not just a tariff, it's many different ways to look at a tariff. And then lastly, over the course of the next year, our primary funder, so Paul G. Allen Estate, will be transitioning into a foundation. So fully what that means, we're still working on that. It's still evolving, but I'll highlight the good news next. So the good news as we talk about the funding is we are 70% funded by the Paul G. Allen Estate. So as we look across all these other academic institutions when there's a lot of grant funding, we're mostly from the Paul G. Allen side. So I'd just like to highlight this, and we've always said this, is stable on the PGA side. We're managing through policy changes and requests from the NIH on a daily basis. So this is really the frontline people or the Office of Sponsored Research, the legal department, and then research funding. As you think about everything that's changing from NIH policy, grants policy, NSF, everything like that. So it's been a lot, and it's a taxing feeling on all the people involved. We are getting our money, and that's really important. So when we spend on a grant, we're actually getting paid, right? There's a lot of talk at other institutions where, hey, we haven't gotten paid. We haven't gotten our drawdown. We have gotten that within a really small window, a couple days later than we typically would have, but that's not material. Renewals, so when we have a grant that's multi-year, we have an annual renewal process. Those are just slower to come in. And then new awards are slower to arrive. There's this extensive review process that is put on every grant that takes a lot longer for things to be vetted, and what do we want to fund, and does it have the words that are allowed in by the government now? So uncertainty around 2026 NIH and NSF budget. There's just a lot of proposals that are put forth by the presidential office, and then that gets lobbed over to the House and the Senate, and so back and forth on what will the budgets look like. So we're just watching it and figuring out how to adapt as we go forward. And then lastly on here, tariffs. I think Suzanne on the procurement team at one point, this is outdated, but I think it was probably like April, May, she said the tariffs with China changed 16 times at that point. And so it's just adapting to what are the tariffs, what do they look like, what kinds of tariffs are allowed, and then adapting to how people are invoicing for tariffs, right? They're very creative on how they do that. So the procurement team, the accounts payable team, and the legal team have all been involved in managing through all the tariff process. So. All right, so there's a lot, how are we responding to all the unexpected changes in 2025, right? There's been quite a few, right? So federal funding reductions, so that comes in two parts, right? There's direct on grants, funding has gone away from some institutions, and then there's indirect reductions that they've been talking about. This dreaded indirect rate, right? So, which goes to fund a lot of all the administrative and the building side for the science that we do. Talk tariffs, the executive orders, and then immigration and visas, and it's taken a ton of activity to continue on that one. So, what are we doing about this, right? We are delivering on our mission still. We want to be deliberate about how we do it, and we want to be flexible. So what we've done so far, looking at what roles across the entire institute are essential, and so prioritize that. We've done an org-wide prioritization activity, so really looking about how do we react to funding reductions. So if there are grant reductions on in a science unit or indirect rate reductions that go to fund part of this, how do we react, and how do we be good stewards of the funding that we have? Really looking around into the future, how do we put long-term investments in place to become a more efficient workforce? Not just in who we are, but how we do work, right? I know across all of admin, there are tons of manual processes. We have great people, and there's manual work. So we're really trying to invest in how we do the work through more efficient processes as we go forward. And then we are continuing development of the future scientific endeavors. So that has never changed. We're still continuing on that process. Visas and employee support actions. So this is, there's a lot in this one. Updated policies for how we respond to government and legal officials coming on site, right? So there's been increased training by the front desk for protocols on how we react to government organizations like ICE and Homeland Security, right? So a lot to manage there. There's people in culture have been doing just a daily management of everything that impacts the employee base, really looking at how we get outside counsel support, and then to survey the landscape that's going, that's changing constantly. And then just a big call out to Joanna Braden on who is our immigration focal. She is primarily working with all the visa holders, those employees on a visa, working to let them know, what's changed, what's happening, what they need to be aware of, alerting the managers, and figuring out how do we provide appropriate travel guidance, right? So if somebody's traveling on a visa in this environment, what do they need to be aware of, right? So what outside counsel can we provide them? What letters of support can we provide them when they travel as well? So a lot going on, huge team involved in all this, and just a big thank you to all. All right.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. So we'll probably have time in Q&A at the end to get into some more of that if you have questions about what we're doing or what some of those responses are. But I'm going to turn attention to goal progress for the year as well next. So I showed this slide in January. You'll probably see it as it evolves over the years every time we come together. This is kind of, for the administration team, what our true north is. And we ultimately have two very high-level objectives. The first is that as an administrative organization, we're here to enable the science, and we are here to enable the achievement of our mission as an organization. So that's our role, and that's what we do. We're here to make sure that the researchers that work here, the scientists, can deliver on the best research outcomes possible. And the second thing we're here to do is to help manage and facilitate the growth of the organization. So over time, we've grown substantially, especially in the last 5 years. That's moderating a little bit now, but we have that dual imperative. So how do we support our teams to do what they need to do is essentially what this means. And so you can see what our true north is. Related to enable, we're here to really advance our practices as administrative teams, so to be the best we can be and do it at the best of our ability, to optimize our service and be as efficient as possible, and wherever possible to try to simplify our services so that we're reducing the administrative burden on our researchers and scientists so they can focus on the work that they are here to do. And you can see some of the ways that we talk about doing that. And then for purposeful growth, it's really about making sure our foundation is strong so that we can grow over time, that we have administrative services that can scale and adapt and support as the organization continues to grow and change and sometimes become more complex. And so we're really kind of focused on making sure that we're able to support about a 1,000 person organization, which is what we're approaching these days, and that we can support all those different scientific endeavors that are all at different phases of their life cycle. And you can see the ways that we will do that. So when we do our goal setting every year, and the administrative leadership team comes together in August and does this, we'll do it 3 weeks from now again, we come up with a list of priority goals. And later in the presentation, I'll talk with you about how we do this. But here are the 16 goals that we came up with as a priority in 2025. And this doesn't mean that there aren't more, because there are more. There's typically about 80 to 100 different things that are being worked on that are kind of initiative based, that are beyond just the day-to-day work that happens. So still got to get people in the front door, still have to review contracts, still have to provide benefits, still have to service laptops, still have to maintain equipment. All the things that need to happen on a day-to-day basis still happen, plus all these, plus another 80 of them below this that are within all your teams. So it's an immense amount of work that we take on every single year to enable the organization. But you can see here the 16 that the administrative leadership team called out as kind of priorities that we wanted to make significant progress on in 2025. It's nice to start seeing some check marks up there. So you'll hear on one of those today, which is the Allen Connect refinement, in a moment. But you can see where we're at in some of those other big projects. And there's about 10 of them in Enable and 11 of them related to growth. And then you can also see that we reprioritize and refocus our efforts as things change during the year. So we had endeavors to do our long-range plan, financial plan refresh this year. We decided to hold off on that because we have other things that are more important to do. We also were going to make a big improvement and possibly even implement a grants management software system. We decided too much going on. We're going to reprioritize that for the future. But you can see where we're at on these different projects here and kind of how we're progressing. So when we come back in January, I'll be able to do a 2025 in review, and we'll be able to put check marks next to the majority of those things. So I know many of you are involved in this in either a small way or a big way, so thanks for your work on this. This progress gets shared up with Rui every 2 weeks, and he's kind of aware of what we're doing and what's going on, and doesn't ask me any questions until we slip past the target completion date, and then I tell him, well, the teams are still working hard, but we need a little more time. So anyway, that's our goal progress in 2025 thus far. Okay, so a few highlights. Here's where we're going to celebrate some people and some teams and some different projects that have happened over the last 6-7 months. Some of these are on the priority goals. Some of these didn't hit the priority goals, but they're still really good projects that we took on that improve the ability for our scientists to do our work. So with that, I'm going to start a little round robin here of different folks that are going to come up. You're going to get to hear from folks that actually did the work, not me, so people that actually do the work, and we'll talk through some of these highlights. So these highlights are, we'll hear about the Allen Connect and Insider Refresh, and Nick and Huang are going to talk to us about that. We'll talk about the AV conference room modernization from Matt and Gary, material transfer agreements, and that improved process from Lemuel and Penelope. We'll talk about some of the wraparound work with employee engagement plans that our PNC team did, and that's Jimena and Jennifer. And then Tom and Alex will talk about our M365 Copilot implementation. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Nick and Huang, who can come up, talk a little bit about the Allen Connect and Insider Refresh. Thanks, guys.
Hello, I'm Nick Hawley, Director of Communications and Brand.
And I'm Huang Nguyen from IT.
And we were working on the Allen Connect uplift and corresponding insider refinement. And so our main goal was to get out of the intranet Stone Age, which wasn't really it. We had a really nice project statement. So where we were was in classic SharePoint in a highly customized, highly designed platform that was at high risk of breaking. We could not update a lot of the functionality. We were slowly falling behind, hence the Stone Age reference. So we set out to design and build a new intranet site on the modern SharePoint experience to avoid potential breakdown and mass chaos, utilize current SharePoint features, and then enabling teams and empowering them to scale our internal content and take ownership over their own subject areas and things that they need to get in front of all their Allenites. Do you want to walk through objectives?
Yeah, so the few objectives, there's a lot of objectives, but one thing that we want to highlight, a few of those. So first we have to define the purpose. So before the internet is just SharePoint, people put a lot of content on it, but the main purpose of the internet is for sharing information that quickly, and then so we basically go through and establish that purpose, and then another objective is establish the standard and the definition across the Allen Connect, so that every term we use should be mean the same way, and then also we established the global navigation that persists of our site, so that user will not get lost when they navigate our internet. So the big thing is we define the content, what should be on the internet, and we clean out all the content that not should be there, or we move the content, migrate to a more private location, if it's private, and so that we can optimize search and it's easy for folk to find the content that they need.
And it wasn't just Wong and myself. It was Tom and Wong from IT, Juliet and Flea from internal comms, which is a team within communications, myself, and then great leadership and keeping us on task by Melissa Torres and Julie Pye in our PMO office. That's redundant, PMO team. We also had great guidance and leadership and oversight from an executive team. So Chris, Rob, Petra, Frank, all attended. I believe we had 7 or 8 check-ins with them to mark milestones and get feedback and input from them. So we weren't just going about this on our own totally, but some really great cross-team collaboration. And then this is sort of an elaboration of what we had talked about earlier, but really Wong and Tom were good about keeping us from getting overly customized and leveraging this out-of-box functionality. Wong was always really good about putting that filter on us so that we can grow with Microsoft's changes, patches, updates, and we're not having to go back and redesign to accommodate updates that they're pushing or security pushes and things like that. So while what we have is beautiful and striking, it's simple and it's easy to maintain. Search was non-existent basically in our prior Allen Connect. So leveraging the search function and helping folks to be able to self-serve and find things on their own, but also training content owners to use tags and keywords so that things are easily findable, as well as keeping version histories nice and clean. Pushing things out of PDFs into an actual site page on Allen Connect that gets updated there versus looking for, I'm not throwing benefits under the bus, but looking for a benefits guide and maybe you see like 5 different years. Benefits actually does a really good job of keeping their content fresh. And then just keeping, through partnership with IT, streamlining permissions and maintaining user access. Folks leave the Institute, they come into the Institute, folks' roles change, so content owners and editors change, so just keeping that roster fresh so that people know within each team who's owning the content, so we can come chase you down if it needs editing or fixing. And to sum it up, it's really about less time searching and more time researching for our science folks. Again, they're coming out of the labs, they're doing their science work, they just need to chase down a policy or get information on something, and having a very circuitous route in our old situation was not ideal. So making things easier, not only for our science teams, but for everyone. Any questions?
So next is Matt and Gary's.
Yep. Hi everybody, I'm Gary from Facilities.
Hello, I'm Matt from IT. So we worked on the AV modernization project. A lot of you have probably already seen some of the new hardware that we have in the conference rooms. They're a little bit sleeker than what we had previously, and they tend to function a lot more frequently. We focused on upgrading 39 rooms across multiple buildings. And it's definitely, from what we've seen, it's allowed all of us to use these rooms very seamlessly, especially from hybrid perspective as well as on-site perspective. It does a lot better job of combining the experience to feel a little bit closer and more personal. But yeah.
And together we installed new AV hardware, such as rally bars, tabletop sight cameras, and whiteboard cameras. We rolled out intuitive touch panels and digital display signage. We created some quick start guides and job aids to support our users. We coordinated with phased installations to minimize disruption as much as we could. And we deployed Microsoft Places to bring modern features to booking your rooms on the calendar.
Yeah, and so big names were really important to getting all this done. Chris B was helping us with making sure that we were making the right decisions when we needed to. Julie helped us manage everything really nicely. Gary, of course, with the AV team and facilities. Kelly was really, really important with helping us coordinate room downtime, so thank you, Kelly. Tom and I, thank you, Tom, for helping answer questions that I could not. On the IT side, I haven't put a name in here, but I'd like to shout out to Rachel, who was helpful. Rachel from IT was helpful for getting Microsoft Places started so that then I could keep working on it afterwards. Susan, thank you for all of your input. Susan gave us a lot of input for known issues with the previous rooms. Matt Adderson and Brian Downey from Facilities for helping install a lot of equipment. And of course the AV team, big shout out to Noah, who does not work here anymore, but Arda and Daniel, all three of them did a lot of work and are continuing to do a lot of work to make sure everything's still working. So big shout out.
Yeah, thanks for everybody. Didn't work.
That's not touch.
It's not touch, sorry. All right. Lemuel and Penelope are going to talk to you about our MTA process update.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Lemuel Navarro. I'm with the legal team.
Penelope Chilton, also with the legal team.
So for those not familiar with MPAs, it stands for Material Transfer Agreements. It's an agreement that governs the transfer of biological materials like plasmids, tissue, cell lines, and transgenic mouse lines in and out of the Institute. So this service that we provide is instrumental in supporting open science here at the Institute. Through the efficient transfer of materials, like the 500 plus new biological materials that we help support transfer into the Institute in 2024, enabling research advancement within the Institute and through other organizations that we send materials to. And we're doing this while ensuring that we comply with legal requirements and protecting IP interests for all those involved.
You're all blurry, that helps me. Okay, so why was this project important? Why now? Well, there are two reasons we really transitioned to the new modern SharePoint platform, and that is number one, Microsoft ended support for the legacy version built 13 years ago on SharePoint 2012. And the second is the old system no longer met our Institute's evolving technological standards and needs. This upgrade ensured a smooth transition while improving functionality, enhancing user experience, and better aligning with our current institutional goals. What did we accomplish? Well, our primary objective for this project centered on creating a more efficient MTA request portal. The new portal includes improved intake forms that cut down on the back and forth email between legal and the science teams to help us process requests faster. It offers more informative and a more user-friendly intake experience with clearer instructions, improved transparency, and a more functional interface. And then one particularly notable improvement is now individuals can see all the requests for their respective science units, all their MTA requests. That was a big request we had from the science teams. And so we made it happen. Long made it happen. So there are a lot of people to thank. We're not going to be able to call them out individually, but as you can see, this project spanned most of the science units, number of admin teams. So we thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for all your hard work, testing, and everything you did. One person we do want to call out individually is Huang Nguyen. Huang, yeah. Huang showed a ton of patience, with me in particular, good humor. He was available, so professional, and he built us a really cool tool, and we really appreciate you, Huang. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to now talk about our employee engagement dashboard. So thanks, Jennifer and Jimena.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jimena Garcia. I am manager of inclusive research programs on the culture and community team.
Hi, I'm Jen Williams. I am one of the senior HRIS analysts on the People and Culture team.
Yeah. And so I really love this project. It's close to my heart because I love our team science culture. And I think this really helped us take feedback from last year's employee engagement survey to help our scientific leaders create these active action plans with SMART goals and provided the tools for them to facilitate the change management process that is required to achieve some of those goals. So we supported the action planning process in close partnership with our people and culture business partners and scientific leaders who are listed here. And then we also created a dashboard. That was one of our goals, is to create a dynamic dashboard that would kind of excite our scientific leaders to go there to check, the progress that they've made in achieving some of their action plan goals, and also allow our people and culture business partners and our leaders at the Institute to be able to see organization-wide how are we doing in meeting those action plans, and which ones are at risk that may need extra support so that we can, address some of the key focus areas identified from the 2024 Employee Engagement Survey. And this work was led by Titi Denaloy, so I am presenting on her behalf. She did an incredible job in leading this project. And part of the project team were Jennifer, Sarah Morgan Hunter, me, and we were working with Holistic Consulting, Guthrie and Jalissa.
There's a lot of people out there, sorry. All right, so together we prioritized a user-centered design. We built 11 individual dashboards designed with reporting owners in mind. We also included a full org-wide view to track and understand action plans at the enterprise level. We embedded best practices, including prioritizing SMART goals and change management so updates can take less than 10 minutes. We produced multimodal resources for end users. We collaborated with the PNC business partners and developed resources for the PCBPs to support the action plan owners. And last but not least, reporting. We developed monthly reports with key growth and success metrics to the PNC VP and executive leadership, as well as year-end reporting to leadership, action plan owners, and staff.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. So with all of this, hopefully that will help, everyone within the scientific units, or scientific unit leaders to be able to share back with their teams. Hey, these are the goals that we established. This is where we are. This is what we did. And this is what we were hoping to achieve and impact our team culture here at Allen. And so, as I mentioned, we really wanted to create, turn that employee engagement, those survey results into action. And so far, 79% of our teams have submitted action plans. So every team every scientific unit and administrative team submits action plans on a monthly basis. So 79% of them have submitted action plans. Those that have not submitted action plans are getting one-on-one support from our consulting team with Holistic. So that hopefully we'll have that at 100% next time we're reporting back. So far, this process started in around June. That's when the dashboard was launched. So since June, about 16.5% of goals have already been met. So that's pretty good. And 41% of our projects have started on time. And so really want to thank all of our stakeholders, the scientific leaders, our administrative leaders, in engaging in this process with us and investing so much time into creating really intentional action plans that will help improve the team science culture here at Allen Institute. So we really hope that this process has been helpful, and we're really excited to see all of the amazing goals that are accomplished at the end of the year. So thank you.
All right, we've got one more. Tom and Alex are going to talk to us about our Copilot implementation.
Hi everyone, my name is Tom Ansell. So with the Microsoft 365 project, I kind of helped coordinate with a lot of our external vendors, created some ideas for where we need to go, materials that needed to be created, and just kind of coordinated a lot of the activities.
My name is Alex Watson. I'm with End User Support. I handled getting everyone licensed up and managed any troubleshooting along the way, of which there was fortunately very little.
A little bit bumpy on the onboarding. I think there was a little bit of the button's gray. Yeah, so for anyone that's not aware, Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI tool that goes along with it. I think we were asked for about 6 months to get this up until we actually got the project. Call out there for Lenina, one of our primary people wanting us to get this going as quick as possible. Really, our main goal here for the scientific units was to get this in their hands, be able to start playing around and using it. As part of the project, we created a ton of resources for guidelines, getting a community going, onboarding practices, AI fluency and literacy. And really, it was across all of the different collaborators for all the units. I would really highlight some people that were very active in our community for helping us get this going. But this is really the thing that most people care about when we talk about like why is Copilot useful, is this on the bottom right. So we get dashboards that go over 4 weeks worth of metrics, and just in the past 4 weeks, Microsoft told us that Copilot saved 249 hours of work over 6,000 plus different actions. If you want to know the math of how they got that, I can talk to you about it later. It's close. It's actually pretty good. So this can help anything from Outlook, inside of your Word, PowerPoint, and other different areas. But it really is your kind of AI companion with chat and all the different Microsoft applications that you can kind of get rid of blank page syndrome and do a lot of your AI assistance through it.
All right, before we jump on to the next thing, it's in every one of these situations, we had an opportunity to do an improvement, fix a broken process, start a new process, implement a new tool. And I think you'll see that we're continuing to evolve the way we work across the administrative part of the organization and scientific and administrative part of the organization. The reason why you're seeing all these different names from different functions is, as a very kind of interdependent organization, it's important for us to collaborate effectively across. And with the help of the PMO and these big projects, we've really tried to involve the appropriate stakeholders at the right time in these discussions. So we're calling out a lot of people in this because it takes a village to get these big projects done. So thanks to all the folks that have done this and these particular projects. We'll celebrate more in 6 months. There's not going to be an end to this. We'll get some different folks up here and you'll hear from others. But thanks to these teams for pulling these through. It's been really nice to see them have successful project outcomes. With that, we are going to do another topic, which is department features. So this is one of the feedback pieces from the survey. We want to hear from different departments. I might know that we have an IT department, but I don't know what they actually do in detail. Or I might know that we have science support services, but I don't know what they do or what that means. And so the science support team, or at least a couple of them, are going to come up here, talk a little bit about what they do, how they enable our science at the organization, and help us achieve our mission. So I will turn it over to the S3 team for next steps.
Where's on? Come on up here on. There you go. Good morning. Thanks everybody for coming. It is my pleasure and privilege to be able to tell you a little bit about S3, which we call ourselves because it's easier than saying Scientific Support Services. Our group has been here since I think pretty much the start of the Allen Institute, but we have grown a lot as our programs have grown. And so what we'll do is I'll give you just a short high-level overview of what S3 does, and I'll turn it over to An, and he can give you a little bit more of a drill down into his particular group and one of the projects they're doing. I think Chris said, we had like 80 projects that are embedded in groups, the projects that all of our units are working on all the time, and so An will show you one of those. S3 is a major contributor to that, so we've got lots going on, and we're happy to show you one of them. So here's S3 at a very high level. So we've got 5 groups that make up S3. And that piece that you saw on the Administrative True North slide, that's where we live. That's our mission. That's what we think about every day when we show up. How can we do the best job we can to support the researchers? Because that's our part of the mission, is to facilitate their part of the mission. And so there's all these things that have to happen in a research enterprise for it to be successful. And we try and do as much as we can to take it off of the plate of the researchers. Because the researchers are the only ones who can do the research. But we can do a lot of the stuff around the research to help them have more time to be more efficient, to get more done. So that's where we live. So here's the groups here. We can just kind of go clockwise. Health and safety start, led by Jenny Allen, who's here. You can raise your hands and stand up and say hi to everybody. Yep. They do a really great job of making sure that all of us go home at the end of the day as healthy, or at least pretty close, as we were when we got here in the morning. Any issues that come up with health and safety are theirs, and they do a lot of other things too that nobody sees. Somebody's got to take care of all of the waste that gets generated in the research enterprise. They take care of all kinds of things behind the scenes so that other people don't have to, as well as doing some other things like the blood draw, clinics that we have here occasionally once a quarter. So thanks to all of you who participate in that and donate your lovely red blood cells to people that are in the community that need them. It's an advantage we have of having a very young staff here. You guys are bursting with red blood cells, and we know what to do with them. Also, we've got this fall, we've got a vaccine clinic scheduled too, so we encourage everybody to take advantage of that so we can keep you healthy through the winter. So things like that EH&S does. Research compliance, a small group led by Shannon Ramsey. Shannon's here. There you are. Again, another one of those things that happens around the edges of the research that is critically important, because those of you who know research know that if you have non-compliant research, you can't use the data for anything. You can't publish it. You can't present it in scientific meetings. You can't apply for grants with it. And now with all of the scrutiny from the federal government on regulatory issues, you probably can't get funded either. And so Shannon and Bernie, who works with her, do a really good job of making sure all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted so that the research goes forward and we don't have to worry about anything. The next two groups, lab animal support and animal care, both led by Tim Daw here. So again, a lot of the groundbreaking work that you've seen in these highest level journals recently comes out of our animal models, and Tim's groups help support that directly. The group that does lab animal support, doing work with animals is challenging. Takes a high level of experience and technical competence to do it, to minimize the impact on the animals and make sure you get the best research day out of it. And so we've got a group that can do a lot of that for the research groups if they don't want to take the time or train their people to do it themselves. We can step in and do a lot of that so they can focus on other things that they need to do. My care group, they are here every day. Doesn't matter if it's a sunny 80-degree day during summer or a wind or middle of winter or a holiday or you name it. They are here 367. We check every animal every day to make sure they're healthy. Sometimes we check them a lot of times if we're concerned about their health. But it's a group that's always here, always working, always trying to get this stuff done so that the research has the best opportunity to get the best data they can. And then finally, the lab equipment support group, which An leads here. We'll turn it over to him, but not surprisingly, we've got a lot of really sophisticated equipment in this institute, and somebody's got to take care of that stuff. Somebody's got to make sure it gets purchased and moved in and set up right and calibrated right. And then sometimes we have labs that move, and you've got to move it and reset it up again. And then at the end of life, somebody's got to get it out of the lab so we can get the new equipment into the lab. So it's all those kinds of things that have to get done that just take time and energy that we don't want the researchers to do. So An and his group do those types of things for our researchers just to keep things moving and help them focus on the research itself. So with that, I will turn it over to An, and he can give you a flavor of one of the projects we're working on.
All right, my name is An Ho, and I work in the lab equipment support team. In fact, while I'm here and with a few colleagues in the back row there, the majority of the team is in the lab supporting the equipment right now at this building and Dr. Yard. Science does not take a break. So the last time I was on this stage giving a presentation, this launch was about 9 years ago. I was in brain science, working in the lab. Looking back now, though, the auditorium is certainly a lot different than it was 9 years ago. This screen was about 4 times larger. So, great job to the administration team for providing us this awesome auditorium to work with. H3 mission is, as I mentioned, is to support science and safety. Since we are working in Seattle, earthquake is not a question of if, but when and how severe. In fact, when I was in high school, we had the 6.8 Nisqually earthquake that impacted the Seattle area. I was 20 miles north of Seattle and felt it for a good few seconds. The damage from that quake, I think, we estimate to be between $1 to $4 billion based on Wikipedia. So I think it's very important to work on earthquake safety in this region. So I'm here to talk about one project we are wrapping up this year on this topic, and that is our effort to seismic restrain laboratory equipment at 615 Westlake and Dexter Yard. The project started in 2022 and is on track to complete by the end of this year. We have a budget of $80K to seismic restrain 350 pieces of lab equipment. This includes freezer, tissue culture incubator, biosafety cabinet, all the important equipment that are critical to our scientific mission and success. We use a double structure system installed standardized at 30-inch and 60-inch from the floor. As you can see in the image right there, the two unit structure running on the wall. This system allows us to replicate throughout the lab space at Bow Building, so that in the very, very rare event where a piece of equipment had to be relocated from one location to another, we could just snap it back at the new location. To date, we have installed over 3,000 feet of unistruct at Bow Building. So for reference, if you take a look at this auditorium, that's enough unistruct to go around this room 12 times. Doing that with equipment on every single piece of wall. As you know, wall space is very critical real estate in the lab. The strap that we use works exactly like your seatbelt in the car. You can remove it, you can snap it back. It supports up to 4,000 pounds. For example, that minus 80 freezer with the green top in the picture, fully loaded is about 2,000, 2,500 pounds. So we feel very confident with the system. And in fact, Fred Hutch and a few other local biotech also use it. This is a picture I took in the 5th floor, one of the freezer rooms, just to kind of illustrate how equipment are installed in there and what the system looks like when it's installed. So this project is led by Estelito Trinos in the back there, along with support from other colleagues in lab equipment support. Alejandro, Skylar, Kendrick, and Aiden. And that 3,000 feet of unistruct, they were each individually expertly installed by our dedicated colleague in the building service team, Gary, Malia, Brian, and Matthew. So great job, everyone, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, On and Dave. And just in case you're wondering, like the worst part of On's job, it's to show up every time there's a power failure with a group of other folks like building services, equipment support, sometimes IT, animal care, and others. There's a power failure. Equipment needs to be moved to emergency power because we don't have it. These guys show up in the middle of the night and make sure that we don't lose samples, our mice are taken care of, science can start the next day. So some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you just don't see every day. I get those Teams messages in the middle of the night, and then it's always surprising to me to see how fast they start chatting on that Teams chat in the middle of the night about what needs to be done. So kudos to On's team and some others, facilities who show up and do this stuff and make sure everything runs. Again, another thing behind the scenes that's impressive to see. So thanks. All right, so looking ahead, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about how we set our goals as an administrative organization, and gonna give you some very, very, very preliminary thoughts on what 2026 might be, and some of the goals might be those priority goals. So we use a lot of inputs into our goal setting process. And we have a long history of SMART goals at the Allen Institute, and it's important because it keeps us on track into achieving what we want to achieve to support the scientific endeavors here. It all kind of starts with a long-range financial plan, which our finance team builds with input from a lot of different folks in science and administration. around what we think our trajectory is going to be over several years. So it all kind of starts with the long-range financial plan. That's what I call the envelope of what the organizational size and scope and scale is going to be. And then we get input internally. We get that through our annual portfolio review process, which is when the members of the executive leadership team, so science unit leaders plus administrative leaders, come together, and they help us define what we need to do to support their scientific endeavors. And then, of course, our CEO has an opinion and he's willing to share it, and our board of directors has opinions and they're willing to share that too. And so we take that feedback and we put that into our goal plan. And then we have external input, which I'll go into a little more detail on, but we now have an advisory council that provides input to our administrative services and how those get provided. And then last year, we utilized Deloitte to help us do some survey and review processes that gave us some long-term ideas about how we could improve. So external input. We have an enterprise risk management plan, which Meg and I lead, Meg McClellan and I lead, which is about what are the long-term risks to the organization, to us achieving our strategies, and how do we mitigate for those risks? And that folds in. And then I mentioned earlier how we might have 80 to 100 goals that are ongoing. Those are all the things that bubble up from the departments where each of the teams are leading and focusing on work that may be encompassed just in their department, but supports the overall organization. So those, what are there, 7 things? 7 things are what go into our goal setting process every year. And when I started 3 years ago, it was almost completely a bottoms up approach. And now we've kind of married a top down and bottom up approach where we get a lot of different pieces of input. And again, 100 goals is great. I can't remember 100 things. I can remember about 10 or 15. And so we do try to prioritize those all the time. So anyway, that's how we set our goals. And we're going to start that process again for next year on August 18th, I think, which is right when we start budgeting. So we align our goal setting process with budgeting to make sure that whatever thing we want to do, we can resource it appropriately to make sure we can get it done. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about the EAAC, Executive Administration Advisory Council. So all our scientific units have a scientific advisory council. It reviews their science. It helps them determine how they're performing and their scientific strategy for the future. Rui Costa had the idea that administration should do the same thing. So we should put in front of external advisors the work that we're doing and test it and see whether or not we're doing a good job, whether we could be better, whether we need to refocus, and things we need to think about for the future. And so you can see that we just started this. Really, it came to fruition for the first time this year. And this is what we ask our council members to do. And in 2025, we asked them to advise us on 3 broad topics. How we should move through potential funding challenges related to changes at the federal administration level. Items we need to consider for future of workforce and how our workforce is going to adapt and change over the next few years. And then the third was, how do we continue to get foot forward on our technology, and how are we going to upskill and train our teams to be proficient users of AI tools and the work that they do every day. So those were the 3 topics we discussed. We got some recommendations from them on how to go about doing that. We're putting some structure behind those right now and reviewing them. And then you'll see some of these topics here get collected in our 2026 priority administrative goals. So stay tuned on that. But to let you know, we now have an advisory group that's external to us that's providing us input on how we go about doing our work. Okay, so looking ahead to 2026. So these are preliminary, so you don't get to hold me to them just yet. I'll provide for you the real list of goals. But here are some things that I think we're going to need to take on in 2026. The first is anything we don't finish this year, it doesn't go away, it gets to go forward. So we'll finish that stuff, we'll take it on. I mentioned that there's going to be a new scientific moonshot. It's kind of colloquially known as the Human Brain Accelerator right now. That could change, but it's be focused on human brain disease. And that has the potential to be a very large scientific endeavor. lots of people, lots of equipment, lots of space, lots of scientific projects. And so administration teams will have to come behind that and figure out how we are going to support that. And we're just to the point now where the science teams that are going to do that are really developing what their plans are going to look like and what their scientific goals are going to be. So we're kind of waiting, we're engaged, we're watching, we're listening, we're providing input. But that's going to launch likely in early 2026. We've spent some time over the years organizing scientific cores. We already have some, like our vivarium operations. There's others that we can organize probably in a more effective way and deliver better results to our research teams at greater efficiency. Writ large, we need to keep investing on things that improve our productivity and efficiency as an organization. So you saw a number of them today. Things like the SharePoint refresh. That was all about not only communicating what we're doing here, but making it easier for people to do their work every single day. Improvements on that, we're going to continue to invest in areas where we can reduce administrative burden for our science teams. We're going to stick with our plans around employee engagement. Expect another employee engagement survey this fall. Expect that there'll be more action planning that takes place on that, and that's going to become part of our rhythm of the business. We're going to ask our employees what they think of the organization, where we can make improvements, and we're going to listen and respond to those. So that'll become more kind of worked in. Maybe surprise to some of the people in the room, sorry, I'm going to spring this on you right now. We've been in the building for about 10 years. There's some likelihood that with the new Human Brain Accelerator coming in, we're going to need to rethink about where specific labs sit within the building. And so we're just starting a process right now and thinking about, does it make sense for us to restack 615 Westlake, move some things around in a major way that gets us to be more efficient in our science units, puts them more proximal to each other. And so just starting to think about this. But if we do that, and if it comes in at the scope that I think it might come in at, it's going to be a lot of work. So anyway, that's coming. And the last thing I would say is we need to really think about, now that we've made a big investment in Microsoft Copilot, how do we all become very well versed in using these tools in our day-to-day work to make us more efficient? And it's not so that we can, change our workforce in terms of numbers, but it is so that we can continue to take on additional work that supports our scientific units and take on higher level work. So how can we get our artificial intelligence tools to do more of the work that maybe is lower value? So we're going to have to learn into that as an organization, as individuals, and there'll likely be some goal and milestones around that as we enter 2026. So preliminary goals for 2026, they'll get turned into real goals in August and September, and we'll share those out amongst the teams. Okay, so we've reached the point of the agenda where we're interested in feedback. So if you liked this admin town hall, scan that and give us feedback. We'll ask you some questions, and please give us feedback because we can adapt, as we go on. And then before we get to Q&A, just wanted to give a big heartfelt thanks to everybody in the room and online and that's still working out in the labs. As I mentioned earlier, you got to see like 5 projects, but the day-to-day stuff still happens. Deliveries still get made, items still get received, accounts still get posted, contracts get reviewed, benefits get delivered. It takes a lot of work to make this place run efficiently, so thank you to everybody. We'll continue to highlight some of the different things that everybody does as we go forward in the future. Okay, and with that, we can go to Q&A. And in Q&A, there are microphones up here, so it'd be helpful if you want to do Q&A that you go to a microphone so the folks online can hear you. And we'll hang around for a few minutes, and then we'll go have snacks. Okay, thanks everybody. Any questions? Oh, we got one. One brave soul.
You wanted me to grab the mic, right?
Please.
Okay. So, Check, is that on?
Yeah, so I just want to know, Chris, what in the brain accelerator is different than what the brain science unit has been doing for 20 years?
Yeah. Writ large, there has been a portion of the Allen Institute for Brain Science that has been focused on human brain disease, but largely it's been focused on mouse models. The Human Brain Accelerator will be focused primarily on human brain disease. So think Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and other degenerative diseases of the human brain. So it will definitely be a human bent and focus that will be different. It will also be probably our first institute where all the data that is generated will be generated in a way that makes it accommodative to using artificial intelligence to assess that data. So a very big project, a very bold project, and probably a very long-term project for the organization as well. Good question. Any other questions? You're supposed to wait at least 7 seconds without saying anything. Oh, we got one. Okay. Careful, Liam. Careful. Right behind you, Liam. Right behind you.
Sorry, I didn't see that. It may be too early for you to say anything about this, but with the restacking of laboratory space, in the most likely scenario as you see it, do you see like a annexation of any space that is currently not lab space, i.e. a reduction in desk space?
Probably not. So I do see us in an ongoing journey of trying to find the right balance between getting teams and people proximal to each other and where they work. So if you go back a couple years to the whole concept around hoteling, we had outgrown this building. We've got 920 some odd employees, 756 desks. It's crazy that I know that exact number. But one of the things that came out of that, and one of the principles we tried to live by, was how do we get teams proximal to each other so that when they're on site, they can collaborate as much as possible. And it's an ongoing challenge because teams shrink and grow, the way they work changes, and where they want to be in the building sometimes changes, and then people are emotional about their desks, which I understand. So what I think will happen, Liam, is we're not going to reduce desk seating space because we already don't have as much as maybe we would want. We also can't grow it a lot because the building the occupancy is based upon a fire code, which we can't really change. So what I see is probably ongoing tweaking and changing if we think about restacking the building of where those teams end up sitting relative to their labs and their other teams as well. That's what I would see probably as the change. That'd be the follow-on to a restacking of the labs. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, I got time for one more. All right. Hi, Marissa.
So is there no chance that we're going to actually build another building, being that we're growing out of this space and you're talking about restacking and we have folks in several other buildings? Is there not a reason to have another space in a sky bridge? Because those are very cool. I have like 2 of them, one on the 3rd floor and one on the 6th floor, in case you're...
Yeah. Well, what I would say is never say never. Never say never. We actually started the process earlier this year of determining whether or not we wanted to spend the time and energy to evaluate in a new building. We were very early in the discussion. A new building would run somewhere on the order of $500 million if we were to do it, just $500 million. We did talk about it. Several of us on the leadership team determined that with the uncertainty around kind of federal funding research and what that might look like, and just other things going on in the organization, including not knowing exactly how artificial intelligence may change the practice of science in the future, we didn't know exactly what that building might look like and what the attributes were, and we weren't sure that it was just a replica of what we had today. And so we took that project to a point of it's sitting on a shelf and it's ready to go through a feasibility phase with an architecture firm, but we put it on hold for right now. The other thing that's going on is there's a substantial amount of empty space to lease in the market. Lease prices have gone down substantially. Right now, it's probably financially better for us to do that and to be able to grow and expand or even contract if we needed to at some point through lease spaces. And then I learned that sky bridges are almost impossible to get in Seattle through this process. The only one that got approved was for an assisted living facility because they made the argument that they needed to be able to move patients across a street without wheeling them across the road. So the likelihood of us getting a sky bridge, of which our CEO is a huge proponent of, but I'm not sure it's going to happen, it would be very difficult. I also learned there is a sky bridge committee in Seattle that you have to get through first. So anyway, good questions. Okay, we're at 11:10. I want to give you time to have snacks and refreshments and have a little camaraderie. So thanks everybody for coming. Good session today. Please give us feedback. We'll do this again in January. Thanks.